Thank you, Mike, for covering for me last week. Looks like Joseph and his brothers, there's a famine in Egypt, and you know, I wanted to go back and look at this real quick, even though we're going to start in chapter 43, because Mike said he finished 42. But I wanted to look back at 42 real quick, because it's so funny sometimes, the Bible, to me. I mean, God's got such a great sense of humor. The way that this is even said, that in 42 and verse 1, it says here, when Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you keep looking at each other?" It's like what are you guys doing? Just standing around looking at you. What are we going to do? I don't know. What are we going to do? What are we going to eat tonight, honey? I don't know. What are we going to eat? All right, so anyway, as this story has unfolded, Joseph now has been set, you know, he's been walking in God's favor from the time he was taken to Egypt. We know the background of that. He was taken to Potiphar's house and found favor there and was basically became the head man over everything Potiphar had. Then he was thrown into prison and he became the warden's best friend and did everything in the prison. He was given complete control of the prison. And then of course, through the dreams and the fact that God gave him the gift to be an interpreter of dreams, that he was able to find favor with Pharaoh. And so, and then once he went in Pharaoh's court, now he's done so well that Pharaoh's given him, he was the number 2 man in Egypt. So I mean, it's just amazing how God has blessed Joseph to this point. So Joseph, of course, now interprets Pharaoh's dream that there's going to be a great famine in the land. And so because of that, in his wisdom, they stored up grain for 7 years, I believe. Is that right? Does that sound right?
Yeah.
I'm just guessing. For some reason, I think 7 comes to my mind when I'm thinking of God. So 7 years, because there was going to be 7 years of famine. And so because of that, Egypt flourished while the rest of the world. So in Canaan, there was a famine and they didn't have the wisdom of Joseph. So they're starving. So that's why Jacob turns to his sons and says, "What are you boys doing standing here looking at each other?" Right? All right. So, chapter 43. They do go to Egypt, and Joseph recognizes them, and let's see, where did I go here? So, but then they go back home, and he said that Egypt, this man in Egypt, wants to see their youngest son Benjamin, right? Remember, is that where we left off? And so Jacob said, "No way, Jose. I already lost Joseph." You know, he had 2 of his favorite sons was through his wife, Rachel, right? Rachel had Joseph and then Benjamin. Well, Joseph's already supposedly dead. He's not giving up Benjamin. So he just said, "No, we'll just stay here. We'll eat what food we got, but no, we're not doing that." Is that where we are? Mm-hmm. Okay, so Jacob's fine with that, right? So suddenly we get to chapter 43. I don't know how much time has transpired, but now we go to chapter 43. It says, "Now the famine in the land was severe. When they had used up the grain they had brought back from Egypt, their father said to them, 'Go back and buy some food.'" So once again, we don't know. The Bible doesn't tell us how much time has elapsed, but they've eaten all the food that they've had. But Judah said to him, "The man specifically warned us, 'You will not see me again unless your brother is with you. If you will send our brother with us, we will go down and buy food for you. But if you will not send him, we will not go. For the man said to us, you will not see me again unless your brother is with you.' 'Why did you cause me so much trouble?' Israel asked. 'Why did you tell the man that you had another brother?' They answered, 'The man kept asking about us and our family. Is your father still alive? Do you have another brother?' And we answered him accordingly. How could we know that he would say, 'Bring your brother here'?" Then Judah said to his father Israel, "Send the boy with me. We will be on our way so that we may live and not die, neither we, nor you, nor our children. I will be responsible for him. You can hold me personally accountable. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, I will be guilty before you forever." If we had not wasted time, we could have come back twice by now. Then their father Israel said to them, if it must be so, then do this. Put some of the best products of the land in your packs and take them down to the man as a gift. Some balsam, some honey, aromatic gum and resin, pistachio and almonds. And actually, I think in one translation it said, take him some myrrh. That's the old Christmas wise man spice, remember? Verse 12, take twice as much money with you. Return the money that was returned to you in the top of your bags. Perhaps it was a mistake. So once again, if you remember, when he went there, Joseph gave them the food and he put all their money back in the bag. So they went there to buy food, and so they come back with the food and the money, and they're worried that when they're on the way, when they're going back, that they might run them down and say, hey, you cheated us out of this food. So they were kind of worried about that, because who gives free food in the midst of a famine, right? So verse 13, so take your brother also and go back at once to the man. May God Almighty cause the man to be merciful to you, so that he will release your other brother and Benjamin to you. As for me, if I am deprived of my sons, then I am deprived. Okay, so anybody have any questions or comments at this point? They got to go back. Covers bare, right? And Jacob doesn't want to do it, but Judah steps up to the plate and says, I'll be responsible for Benjamin. Yeah, and that's kind of wisdom too when you think about it. Whenever you have a committee or something, a committee of people, you can't hold a committee responsible. One person has to be responsible. Kind of like when you have a committee, you better have a chairperson of a committee. You can't just do a committee. I know that in my business, like for instance, when trying to teach people how to manage in stores, a lot of times they'll try to run a produce company of like 2 or 3 people working in the department, and they're all ordering. That doesn't work. That just does not work. Ordering supplies and keeping your inventory, because nobody knows what the other person's doing. So you've got to have one person. So Judah steps up. They probably all would have done it, but that just wasn't the solution. So Judah steps and said, I'll be accountable. I'll be responsible for him. So Jacob relents based upon that. Had Judah not done that, I don't think Jacob would have relented. Okay? All right, so verse 15. The men took this gift, double the amount of money. So once again, they thought, the Egyptians would think that they cheated them the first time. So they took double the amount of money and Benjamin. And they made their way down to Egypt, and they stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to his steward, take them into my house, slaughter an animal and prepare it, for they will eat with me at noon. The man did as Joseph had said and brought them to Joseph's house. But the brothers were afraid because they were taken to Joseph's house. They said, we have been brought here because of the money that was returned in our bags the first time. They intend to overpower us, seize us, make us slaves, and take our donkeys. I mean, just immediate fear, right? The worst case scenario, right? Isn't that funny, though? I mean, you see just suddenly paranoia. I mean, wasn't enough just, they're going to arrest us. We're doomed. Oh, let's see, where was that?
Number 19.
Okay. And take our donkeys. Man, if they take your donkeys, you're in a heap of trouble now, right? You can't escape without your donkeys. Verse 19, so they approached Joseph's steward and spoke to him at the doorway of the house. And they said, sir, we really did come down here the first time only to buy food. When we came to the place where we lodged for the night and opened our bags of grain, each one's money was at the top of his bag. It was a full amount of our money, and we have brought it back with us. We have brought additional money with us to buy more food. We don't know who put the money in the bags. Then the steward said, may you be well. Don't be afraid. Your God and the God of your father must have put treasure in your bags. I received your money. So he's basically telling them, I had your money, basically. I did get your money, is what he's telling them, right? I don't know what your translation says, but when he says, I received your money, he's saying, no, we did see you brought money. Anybody have anything different there?
Just I received your silver.
Okay. So I'm in the Christian Standard Bible right now, so that's the translation I'm using right now. Okay, then he said, continue verse 23, then he brought Simeon out to them. The man, so Simeon's the one that they kept there, right? Mm-hmm. So think of that, we don't know how much time elapsed, but Simeon was still there in prison until they ate all their food, right? Think of that.
Jacob didn't care about him, did he?
No, sir. It wasn't Joseph or Benjamin.
Yeah, that's pretty sad.
That's pretty harsh.
Yeah.
Verse 24, the man brought the men into Joseph's house, gave them water to wash their feet, and got feed for their donkeys. Since the men had heard that they were going to eat a meal there, they prepared their gift for Joseph's arrival at noon. When Joseph came home, they brought him the gift they had carried into the house, and they bowed to the ground before him. Now, you know, the only thing is I have looked and read this story over time and time again is how Joseph must have really changed in his appearance.
Yeah, not
That they did that, none of them recognized him.
Well, he was bald. He shaved his head before he went into.
Yeah, they shaved.
Wouldn't you recognize me if I shaved my head?
No.
Yes.
You'd still recognize
How
me.
many years later, isn't it like?
I wouldn't be as handsome as I am now.
I think it's like.
Shave your head before it's time, my
Careful.
It's because it would have.
But Tony,
Yeah.
careful.
So then there was,
I'm sorry, what?
he served, and
years
then
went
the
by
famine stuff.
before they
And when he
saw him.
left, he was
Yeah,
pretty
but
strong.
still, you know, just think
But
about,
he knew who they were.
just think about your voice.
I know.
You
Yeah.
know, your voice doesn't even change until you get really old. You know, people get older, their
Well, he
voice.
was, well,
Your voice, your mannerism, I mean,
was he 16?
that's the only thing that strikes me about that.
Was
How
he
old was he when he
16?
left?
When they left, he was,
Cause I'm thinking he was scrawny, and they said he was well built later on. So
well,
I figured the
Yeah,
scrawny
but he
kid
knew
leaves,
who
and I was
they
this well
were,
built
so,
man.
and you know, they changed over the years too, obviously.
and Mike went to his
They
class
did.
reunion and said he recognized nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Went to class reunion.
and I didn't recognize. It was
Yeah,
weird.
I didn't know
Until
anybody.
they said who they were, I'm like, oh yeah.
But I'm still thinking these guys are probably, they're not old men to make this trip. You know, that's why Jacob stays home. You know, they're maybe in
Well, you know the old saying,
40s.
out of sight, out of mind? I mean, they thought he was dead, so.
I guess.
Well, you can figure how old he was.
Well, I'm just, you know, that's just me, I believe God's word, don't get me wrong, but that's just weird. None of them recognized him. I mean, what do you do, have one of those glasses with one of those, Harpo, Groucho Marx nose, and, you know, we put on those glasses on the nose? I don't know. Okay, so anyway. Since the man, verse 25, since the men had heard they were going to eat a meal there, they prepared their gift for Joseph's arrival at noon. When Joseph came home, they brought the gift they had carried into the house, and they bowed to the ground before him. Remember the dream he had? The one that got him in trouble?
Yeah.
They would all bow down, all the stars would bow down to him. He asked if they were well, and he said, how's your elderly father that you told me about it? Is he still alive? And they answered, your servant, our father, is well, he is still alive. And they bowed down to honor him. When he looked up and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, he asked, is this your youngest brother that you told me about? Then he said, may God be gracious to you, my son. Joseph hurried out because he was overcome with emotion for his brother, and he was about to weep. He went into an inner room to weep. Then he washed his face, and he came out. Regaining his composure, he said, serve the meal. They served him by himself, his brothers by themselves, and the Egyptians who were eating with him by themselves. So there was segregation going on back then, right? Because Egyptians could not eat with the Hebrews. Well, now we know that later on the Jewish people would not eat with the Gentiles. So talk about cliques, right? Racial profiling. Since that is abhorrent to them. Verse 33, they were seated before him in order by age, from the firstborn to the youngest. The men looked at each other in astonishment. Portions were served to them from Joseph's table, and Benjamin's portion was 5 times larger than any of theirs.
Oh, my.
That's my little brother. Right?
You didn't sell me.
5 times larger. You know, you'd think, I mean, stop right. You think Joseph would have learned a lesson about favoritism. What are they going to do now? Take Benjamin on the way home and throw him in a well? I mean, you know, I mean, you got 5 times more food than we did. So they drank and they got drunk with Joseph. Anybody have anything other than they got drunk with Joseph?
They drank and were drunk.
They drank and were merry.
Mine just says they feasted and drank freely.
Okay.
That means drunk.
Well, this
Does it
is,
really say drunk?
it does say, this, they maybe take some liberties in this translation on that. But,
Yeah.
I guess drank freely. Must mean
now you have to remember when Noah got off that boat, he got drunk. Remember? So the people that say that there wasn't wine back in Jesus' day, that you know, kind of stuff gets you drunk, don't believe that. They had potent stuff back then. Okay, and that's chapter 43. So they're back in Egypt. They're going back for more food. Kind of a disguised homecoming at this point. Any questions or comments?
That could have alerted these men, you know, if they were thinking that this person looks like Joseph, and see how he favors our
Benjamin.
brother.
Yeah.
See how he
Yeah,
favors
that
our
could have took them
brother.
off. Yeah.
'Cause
But I
that's
don't think
very-
it did. I don't think it did at this point.
No.
So they're probably just more upset that they didn't get what they wanted. Okay, let's go to chapter 44. Then Joseph commanded his steward, fill the men's bags with as much food as they can carry, and put each one's money at the top of his bag. Put my cup, the silver one, at the top of the youngest one's bag, along with his grain money. So the steward did as Joseph told him. At morning light, the men were sent off with their donkeys. They had not gone very far from the city when Joseph said to his steward, get up, pursue the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, why have you repaid evil for good? Isn't this the cup that my master drinks from and uses for divination? What you have done is wrong. So evidently Joseph's cup that he used, that he would drink from and interpret his dreams with, I guess was what he was talking about when he's talking about divination.
Maybe his steward thought he was nuts.
I'm sorry?
Like, I'm wondering what his steward is thinking about all this. Like, why are you having me do this?
I don't know, but yeah, I'm sure he had some thoughts about it too. It's like, maybe Joseph confided with him. Maybe he asked him, why am I putting all our money back? I don't know. It's just, a lot of times the Bible doesn't fill in all the different details. It leaves it to your imagination. So it says in verse 6, when he overtook them, he said these words to them. And they said to him, why does my Lord say these things? Your servants could not possibly do such a thing. We even brought back to you from the land of Canaan the money we found at the top of our bags. How could we steal gold and silver from your master's house? If any of us is found to have it, he must die. And we also will become my Lord's slaves. The steward replied, what you have said is proper, but only the one who is found to have it will be my slave, and the rest of you will be blameless. So each one quickly lowered his sack to the ground and opened it. The steward searched, beginning with the oldest and ending up with the youngest, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. The last one searched. Then they tore their clothes, and each one loaded his donkey and returned to the city. So, and that's back in those days, whenever they really wanted to show grief, they actually would take their clothes and just rip their shirt or their tunic or whatever they were wearing in half. Today, teenagers just rip holes in their jeans. They just cut their jeans up, right? But I don't think they're grieving. I think they're just trying to make get attention. Verse 14, when Judah and his brothers reached Joseph's house, he was still there. They fell to the ground before him. What is this you have done, Joseph said to them. Didn't you know that a man like me could uncover the truth by divination? Well, not without your cup, dude. Right? Why do you need his cup back, right? What can we say to my lord? Judah replied. How can we plead our case? How can we justify ourselves? God has exposed your servant's iniquity. We are now my lord's slaves, both we and the one in whose possession the cup was found. And then Joseph said, I swear that I will not do this. The man in whose possession the cup was found will be my slave. The rest of you can go in peace to your father. In other words, he was going to keep Benjamin. But Judah approached him and said, Sir, please let your servant speak personally to my lord. Do not be angry with your servant, for you are like Pharaoh. My lord asked his servants, do you have a father or brother? And we answered, my lord, yes, we have an elderly father and a young brother, the child of his old age. The boy's brother is dead. That's Joseph, right? The boy's brother is dead. He is the only one of his mother's sons left, and his father loves him. Then you said to your servants, excuse me, bring him to me in order that I can see him. But we said to my lord, the boy cannot leave his father. If he were to leave, his father would die. Then you said to your servants, if your younger brother does not come down with you, you will not see me again. And Simeon. It doesn't have that here, but remember? They still had Simeon up to that point. Verse 24. So he's retelling, this cracks me up. Judah's retelling the whole thing. He's giving the backstory about this, you know. Verse 24. This is what happened when we went back to your servant, my father. We reported your words to him, but our father said, go again and buy some food. We told him, we cannot go down unless our younger brother goes with us. But if our younger brother isn't with us, we cannot see the man. Because Joseph was the man. Isn't that right, Gordon?
Yes, sir.
He was the man.
Be the man.
Be the man. Verse 27, your servant, my father, said to us, you know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One left. I said that he must have been torn to pieces, and I've never seen him again. If you also take this one from me, and anything happens to him, you will bring my gray hairs down to Sheol in sorrow, or down to the grave, maybe your translation says. So, if I come to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with me, is not with us, his life is wrapped up with the boy's life. When he sees that the boy is not with us, he will die. Then your servants will have brought the gray hairs of your servant our father down to the grave in sorrow. Your servant became accountable to my father for the boy, saying, if I do not return him to you, I will always bear the guilt for sinning against you, my father. So Judah's now telling him, I was personally responsible for him. It's on me. He's telling him. He's taking accountability. Verse 33, now please let your servant remain here as my lord's slave in place of the boy. Let him go back with his brothers. For how can I go back to my father without the boy? I could not bear to see the grief that would overwhelm my father. You know, I think Joseph is probably going to be touched. I haven't read this. I can't remember. I would imagine Joseph is touched by that. That Judah is willing to sacrifice his life for Benjamin. Now, Jesus comes from where?
Judah.
The line of Judah. Right? Okay, any questions? That's chapter 44. Any questions or comments? This, you can make a TV miniseries out of this or something, couldn't you? I mean, I see this coming on Netflix here pretty soon. Who wants to help me? Who wants to help me produce
Well,
this?
they have a music.
All right, chapter 45. Joseph could no longer keep his composure in front of all of his attendants, so he called out, "Send everyone away from me." No one was with him when he revealed his identity to his brothers. But he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and also Pharaoh's household heard it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But his brothers were too terrified to answer him. And then Joseph said to his brothers, "Please come near me." And they came near. "I am Joseph, your brother," he said, "the one you sold into Egypt." Well, good grief, my phone's having a party. I'm having a party in my pocket. Sorry about that. I usually sound like
That's Joseph
I
calling.
said Joseph. That's a good one. I apologize. I usually silence my phone before I come in. I forgot to.
That's my phone.
Who's that?
Joseph's calling
It's
everybody.
ringing bells.
Actually,
No,
it's going everybody.
I've got the volume turned down on mine. I don't know why that does
Oh, that
that.
was yours?
Yeah.
I thought it was Sharon.
Mine does that too. I got the volume turned all the way down.
Well, yours will ring here in a minute, Sharon. Let's just be patient.
I don't want to be patient.
I don't want to be patient. Okay, I can't remember where I was.
Four.
Oh, okay, okay.
Hey, it's
5.
Joseph.
And now don't be worried or angry with yourselves for selling me here, because God sent me ahead of you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there will be 5 more years without plowing or harvesting. God sent me ahead of you to establish you as a remnant within the land and to keep you alive by a great deliverance. Therefore, it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Man, what an amazing, that's just an amazing story, isn't it?
It is.
Verse 9, return quickly to my father and say to him, this is what your son Joseph says. God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me without delay. You can settle in the land of Goshen and be near me, you, your children and grandchildren, your sheep, cattle, and all you have. There I will sustain you, for there will be 5 more years of famine. Otherwise you, your household, and everything you have will become destitute. Look, your eyes and my brother Benjamin's eyes can see that it is I, Joseph, who am speaking to you. Tell my father all about my glory in Egypt and about all you have seen, and bring my father here quickly. And then Joseph threw his arms around Benjamin and wept, and Benjamin wept on his shoulder. Joseph kissed each of his brothers as he wept, and afterward his brothers talked with him. Wow.
Can you imagine that conversation?
Was Benjamin born before
That's
Joseph?
emotional. I'm sorry, man. That was emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Benjamin wasn't even born yet when they sold Joseph, was he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he a baby, or was he not even born yet?
I can't remember. I can't remember. You can't remember if Rachel died before they did all this or not. I'm not sure.
Well, we just read it last night.
Google it.
No, just the last few chapters.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so verse 16. When the news reached Pharaoh's house, Joseph's brothers had come. Pharaoh and his servants were pleased. Pharaoh said to Joseph, tell your brothers, do this, load your animals and go on back to the land of Canaan. Get your father and your households and come back to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you can eat from the richness of the land. You are also commanded, do this, take wagons from the land of Egypt for your young children, your wives, and bring your father here. Do not be concerned about your belongings, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours. The sons of Israel did this. Joseph gave them wagons as Pharaoh had commanded, and he gave them provisions for the journey. He gave each one of the brothers changes of clothes, but he gave Benjamin 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of clothes. Come on, Joseph! He's just trying to stir up jealousy in you, isn't he?
I was gonna say, what's the significance of the 5? Because it was 5 times more the food, 5 changes of clothes.
Yeah.
What's the significance of 5?
I don't know. Joseph must like the number 5, I guess. I don't know. But I mean, it's really funny though. Yeah, you stop and you read this story though. It'd be enough, the story by itself, but then Joseph has to do that. You know, he has to show favoritism. But you know, as much as Joseph was favored by God, that shows our fallen nature. That we do favor people that we shouldn't sometimes favor people. You know, the Bible says God is no respecter of persons. In other words, no person is God's favorite. No person is God's favorite. God doesn't have favorites until we come to faith in Jesus Christ, and then we find God's favor because we become His children. But as far as all humanity, He's no respecter of persons. So this is an ungodly act. When we show favoritism to people, that's an ungodly act. Right? And yet we know you probably do have favorites, don't you? Don't you?
Yes,
You got to fight against that. And who are your favorites? Your favorites are usually the ones that favor you and treat you with respect and love and attention, right? So it's difficult to do that. But that's still not the godly way to treat people. It's just natural. I think it's just natural to do that. Okay, so verse 21, the sons of Israel did this. Joseph gave them wagons as Pharaoh had commanded them. Let's see, I read that, didn't I? Verse 23, he sent his father the following: 10 donkeys carrying the best products of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys carrying grain, food, and provisions for his father on the journey. So Joseph sent his brothers on their way, and as they were leaving, he said to them, don't argue on the way. You think he knew his brothers?
Yeah.
You know, they argued the whole time about what to do with Joseph, remember? About should we kill him? Let's throw him in a well? No, just sell him. That's funny. No, don't argue on the way. Even though I just showed favoritism, don't argue about it, right? Verse 25, so they went up from Egypt, and they came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan. They said, Joseph is still alive, and he's ruler over all the land of Egypt. Jacob was stunned, for he did not believe them. But when they told Jacob all that Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to transport him, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. Then Israel said, it's enough. My son Joseph is still alive. I will go to see him before I die.
Doesn't say that they confessed everything they did.
Yeah, they lived out their life in front of everybody, didn't they? Seems like they didn't, you know, I mean, that's pretty telling there that Jacob would say, now I can die in peace, now that I know that Joseph is alive. So, and why could he do that? Remember why he could do that? Who was Jacob's favorite?
Joseph.
Joseph. He was his favorite. Like father, like son, right?
Yep,
It's hard to break that pattern.
yep.
Hard to break that pattern. By the way, I want to remind you guys, I know you guys go to church somewhere else, but Sunday my sermon is going to be dealing with the power of addiction. In Psalm 1 it talks about the process of addiction in Psalm 1. And I'm going to be preaching from that. I just say it because I know you guys, but we're all addicts. I want you to know
Oh,
that.
yeah,
We're all addicts.
Very
It's just
codependent.
what are you addicted to?
yep.
So anyway, I'm real excited about that. I'm ready. I'm getting ready to preach to the book of Psalms, so. All right, chapter 46.
Before you do that, there's a question asked last week.
Okay,
Was this the beginning of the 400?
Yeah. I was asking if, at the end of the 14 years, 7 years of feast and then the 7 years of famine, isn't Joseph the one who got this cycle of the slaves? Of course, they were slaves for what, 400 years?
400 years.
But by the time the famine was over, people had paid everything they could, so after a while you lose your house, then you lose your flocks, then you lose your land. So that's how they became slaves, right? It was through this process
Yeah.
of the famine.
Well, actually, what the 400 years I think starts, and I think it'll start maybe in the book of Exodus, when Joseph dies. The Bible says that Pharaoh, the new Pharaoh, did not know Joseph.
Right.
So that that whole status for his family and the Hebrews that lived there, so that was gone. Now they're just Hebrews.
Yeah,
They're not a favored people anymore.
right.
So I think it starts when Joseph dies.
So they weren't slaves, they're just.
No.
born.
No, they're just,
They were getting ready to become
they're,
slaves
they're,
because they
they're,
lost everything.
right now, they're just,
Living it up.
Living it up,
they're,
yeah.
they're legal immigrants. They had their green card.
Now, who are you talking about?
I'm talking about
Jacob.
Joseph's family and all,
Yeah,
Jacob's family.
family, yeah.
Yeah.
Jacob's family, right now, they're favored immigrants,
Right.
even though they're not citizens, but, and so they were favored by Pharaoh himself, but when this Pharaoh dies and a new one comes aboard,
Oh, yeah.
and of course that was Pharaoh's son, if Pharaoh's natural son then becomes Pharaoh.
Right, and these 12 sons all, they scatter and get their own piece of, in Israel. They all have their own property in Israel.
Once they get to the promised land, after the Exodus,
Right, okay.
not in Egypt. In Egypt,
Right,
they're all still
way
together.
back, yeah.
And then when they get to promised land, God actually directs them where to go. Matter of fact, God gives them specific directions how to even march across the wilderness according to their tribes. Yeah. And there's an interesting note on that, and I've never computed it myself, but there's a guy named Chuck Missler. He used to work for Ford Motor Company. He was an engineer, and he was a mathematician. And he said, and he became a Bible teacher later in age too. And he said that one day he sat down and he took all those, those boring things where God tells of one tribe they'll march to the east this way and march as they're going through the wilderness. He said he computed all that, and he said if you would see that tribe, the Hebrews, marching across the desert toward the promised land, from a satellite or bird's eye view, they marched in the shape of a cross.
Oh,
Really?
wow, wow.
Does that give you cold chills?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I think
It's probably true. I mean, knowing God is true,
Yeah.
Christ was slain before the foundation of the world.
Well, Bonnie, I think it was Bonnie that asked last week about Moses. And I don't remember which tribe, but I heard this week that he was the great or great-great-grandson of Jacob. So I'm not sure which tribe. Do you know which tribe Moses came from?
No, not a fan.
I can't remember. Okay.
No,
Seems
I'm
like
not
I've
sure.
seen that a long time ago.
Because, once again, that's 400 years.
Yeah.
So that's quite a few have come and gone while they were in the land of Egypt. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's significant, but I just don't know.
Yeah.
Do we know what, if their years are the same as our years?
Absolutely.
They are.
Yeah,
Time has never changed from the creation of the world,
okay,
okay?
okay.
It never has. You know, you gotta understand that even in the creation account, God designates that the morning and the evening were the first day. And what are morning and evening dictated by? The revolution of the earth around the sun, right? And that's never changed. Okay. Now, you know what, based on, let me just throw this out, a lot of people say, well, you know, they will try to say the days were different back then, and they'll use a New Testament passage in Peter that says, for you know that a day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day. And they'll take that and put that into the creation account. That's number one, that's bad hermeneutical juxtaposition. It's talking there in context in Peter, he's talking about God's patience.
That's cool.
He's talking about God's long suffering, that his patience is like a day is as 1,000 years with God. When you read that in context, he's not talking about the literal, what is a day, a literal day. He's talking about God's patience. Okay? So, and that's the danger when you take Scripture out of context and you put it over here somewhere. You know, it's just like many of the promises for the church, God promises a lot of things to Israel. He hasn't promised us as a church. And sometimes the church takes those promises and says, oh, that's for us. No, it really isn't. It was for Israel. So, anyway, but that's a good question, though.
Well, I was wondering because back then, people lived 700 years.
Right. And they lived 700 years the way we know it now. And here's the thing about it, Sharon, if you remember, in the new millennial, the kids that will be born when Jesus returns to earth as king, they're going to live to be 700 and 800 years again.
Again?
Again. The longevity of man will increase just like it did before the flood.
I wouldn't want to hear.
Well,
No, but
it's healthy and it's
yeah, you'll be healthy. People won't be decrepit at age 200.
Yeah, they didn't even have kids back then until they
That'll
was
be
like
the new
400
third
or
or
something.
something.
Yeah.
They lived life for a long time.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't want to have a kid at 400.
Well, don't worry, you won't.
I know, because I won't be here. Thank God. The Lord will come get me first.
Yeah.
Thank God.
You know what? The thing is, you're coming back with the Lord during 1,000. You're going to be back here on this earth for that 1,000
Yeah,
years.
but I won't be having kids.
No, and you won't age at all. We'll be ageless then. We'll be in our eternal bodies then.
Yeah, okay, well, so
We-
I won't be in
the
my
church will
decrepit
be-
body.
What?
We'll be reproducing.
That I don't know. I don't know.
We won't be in our decrepit body.
No, we'll be in ageless bodies.
Thank,
You'll be in the prime of your life. You'll be 22 again for all eternity.
that'd be all right.
I finally got a positive comment from her. Thank you, Lord. Oh, mercy. We got time going 46. What time is it? No, we don't. All right. Okay. All right. We're going to finish this up next week. And then I think everybody wants me to go into Daniel. So we'll run into Daniel on the following week. Okay?
You're gonna get through 4 chapters?
Yeah, I went through 3 tonight, didn't I? 43, 44, and 45. I went through 3.
Oh, okay.
You were in the restroom for 1 chapter.
I went in there that long.
All right, everybody. God bless you. Thank you for showing up.
Oh, yeah.